Welcome to the City of Avondale's Green Infrastructure Workshop. Regenerative landscapes aren't just about looking good. They build climate resilience, support biodiversity, manage water more effectively, and create real value for communities. What's often treated as a cost can actually become a resource. The social, environmental, and fiscal impacts are important to bring to the surface, as there are ways we can improve landscapes as cost centers and bring them forward into value centers. Our goals today are simple. Apply best practices, practice SOP-driven management, and set shared standards we can all use moving forward. Meadows are essential to regenerative landscapes. They improve soil health, support biodiversity, and bring smart, water-wise design to the surface. Beyond ecology, they offer real value, reduced maintenance costs, strong visual appeal, and a living system that continues to give back. Of course, every municipality faces challenges. Ecological projects only succeed when they meet both environmental standards and community expectations. Best practices, like keeping edges clean, timing cuts properly, and protecting pollinators during peak seasons, make all the difference.
A meadow's main function, number one thing is soil health, okay? Second is biodiversity. Feel under your feet. I want you to see just how it gives a little bit, why this is important, especially for a city or a municipality. Water infiltration means less runoff. Less runoff means what? Less erosion. We have one of the biggest issues in stormwater management here in DeKalb County because we have the heaviest rainfall in small bursts that we have ever had. We have 3 inches of rain in over a day, and then it just rains for 3 or 4 days, and then we have drought. Stormwater management is a key issue, and Meadows can solve a lot of issues with stormwater management and actually save the county a lot of money. So we want to be a good municipality and save the county money. Number 2 is biodiversity. Why is it important to have biodiversity in plants, bees and butterflies? Meadows with flowers and a nectar source is really, really important for our native insects. Keeping clean edges. You're going to be using an edger first. You're going to get that edge, and then you're going to take your weed eater and clean up at about like 6 to 8 inches in. So that way there's a nice clean line all the way down. And when the meadow is growing up and it's lush, having a clean edge will make a huge difference. Monthly maintenance, at the very least, you want to edge it once a month. You keep those clean lines, you keep people happy. And quarterly, we'll do the big projects where we reseed, maybe we aerate, maybe we mow. We're gonna keep everything really simple and everything for everyone to understand. Whether you are a botanist or an ecologist or a landscaper, we wanna make these processes easy.
Invasive species are spreading quickly, and the costs are staggering. They displace native plants, disrupt fragile ecosystems, and erase opportunities for biodiversity to thrive. Effective management depends on early detection and timely removal. Today, we'll walk through standard operating procedures in real time and give participants a chance to practice hands-on techniques.
My goal today is to introduce y'all to at least 5 main species that are the most common right around here and talk about how we can most effectively manage them. Talk about mechanical pulling either by hand. I also have a weed wrench here. We're gonna demonstrate cut and treats and let y'all try each of those out, as well as some things that can even just be done by hand. This right here is Elaeagnus pungens, or thorny olive, closely related to autumn olive. It also gets the name silverthorn. If you look on the back side of these leaves, it is that bright silver speckled coloration, and it has these thorns that will grow all along the stem. This is evergreen, where the autumn olive is deciduous and will lose its leaves in the winter. But a lot of our invasive species are going to be evergreen, and it's really easy to tell where they are in the winter. So especially when the active season slows down, winter is a fantastic time to prioritize invasive removal. Being able to cut it at the base and then treat the cut. It is easy to snip these, and then I'm going to go behind with some concentrated herbicide and apply it right around the edge of the cuts. You are trying to get the cambium layer, that thin green outer layer right on the edge. That is the target for this pesticide. So the plant will kind of take this pesticide in and slowly and systematically kill off some of those roots. Typically, you'll use glyphosate or triclopyr, but you want it concentrated at close to 40%, which is typically how it comes before it gets diluted. You really don't need much. This is what I carry around, and I'll use one of these for a month or 2. And then you have all of this, which will typically get cut up, and it can either be hauled off or you can try to lay it down in place where it either kind of blends in with the forest floor or make small compact piles so they can decompose naturally. English ivy is going to be a particular risk to trees because it is evergreen and because it will keep climbing and getting into the upper canopy. It adds a lot of weight to these trees and causes them to fall prematurely. There's a lot of vines that are not going to do this because they're going to stay on the trunk or they're going to be deciduous and they lose a lot of that water weight during the winter. And then they have to restart in the spring. English ivy on trees is a priority. It is much easier managed when it's still in the ground. It's only going to get the chance to go to flower and then put out more seed when it climbs as well, and it can get some extra light and have a further distance to throw those seeds. So English ivy on the ground, while it will spread and creep, it is not going to put out seeds. You can even just clip it a few feet up. The roots are fairly easy to pull and are typically they're shallow. Occasionally there'll be something you might have to dig out or treat, but for the most part English ivy does have very shallow roots. But even just clipping that off at the base and all the way around the tree, now everything up is going to eventually die, dry out, and then fall off in its own time, but it's going to immediately start losing a lot of water weight and really reduce the amount of stress on the tree and prevent this from flowering this year. So English ivy on the ground can also be pulled. It's something I would love to see. No English ivy in Avondale Estates one day. Carolina cherry laurel, and while it is native to the coastal areas of Georgia, it is invasive here. And if anyone wants to take the leaves and crush them up, it smells like an artificial cherry, like a cough syrup. But even like that, I can pull these right up. When we are pulling, a lot of times dirt might want to come with the roots. We want to make sure all the soil is left in place best we can. And that if it's easy, go tamp down that disturbance, cover it back up. Would anyone like to try the weed wrench with these right here? Weed wrench is just a leverage tool that's going to be real helpful to avoid having to use cut and treat method. There you go. So essentially you'll put the jaws right around the base of the tree. Here, you might have to open it up some.
All the parts in it?
As long as most of them are in there. There you go. So you got that around. You'll put your foot on here to help close the jaw. And now you just lean back on this slowly, like a big lever. Push down. There you go. Now you can take this, loosen up the jaws, and shake off that dirt. So I'd say for me, I can typically pull any cherry laurel or privet that's shorter than I am, but I also pull trees out of the ground for a living. But anything below 4 feet, it's probably something you could hand pull, but just be careful because sometimes if they have been cut, they're gonna have much stronger roots and that'll take a lot more force than you would expect. And this one we're just gonna leave. Typically when we're piling things around to decompose and dry out on their own, we want to keep the roots off the ground, especially if it is wet or muddy soil where they might be able to re-root. Some plants are going to be much better at re-rooting along the stems of the plants, and some plants aren't going to be an issue. So this is something that if you've pulled out, it's basically dead, but it's always a good best practice to keep the roots kind of up in the air. So a lot of times like here, I even just put it on a rock. I might put it on a fallen log, or when we start the pile, just make sure that this is not the very bottom of the pile. We have Chinese privet, Ligustrum sinensis. So Chinese privet is the #1 worst invasive in Georgia by the amount of land area it has taken over. It thrives in shade and sun, will love these forest margins, but really takes over our understory of our forests. And these will stay evergreen and produce this sub-canopy that prevents the light. And they really depend on the light hitting the ground in the early spring and in the late winter. We have leatherleaf mahonia. And this, like a lot of species, is an ornamental species that have escaped from folks' gardens over years and years and years. This is one that the roots are very tough and you will typically cut and treat. It has very spiky leaves and also has this bright yellow interior that's really easy to notice when you're cutting it or digging up the roots. And I think this is the worst kind of leaf to get pricked by. If you don't like pruning Chinese hollies, you're gonna absolutely hate this. This grass, which we see mostly all around us, is Japanese stilt grass. And this is something that's becoming a larger and larger concern. If you don't do plant ID, and even if you do, IDing grasses is very difficult. And we do have a lot of things that look like this, but if you come into a field of absolutely nothing but one plant, a huge monoculture, that might be a good clue that it could be invasives. And a lot of times it might be this. So if you look closely at the center of the leaf on this, there's this thin silver stripe. That is going to be a good indicator for Japanese siltgrass. This is an annual, but it reseeds very readily. So while it is very easy to pull by the roots, that's not going to be super easy to do in such a large area. However, if you're able to cut this around this time of year, in August, you will typically prevent it from going to seed for that year, and you can interrupt its life cycle since it is an annual, and the grass itself will die from the winter. The seeds for these are known to stay in the seed bank for like 7-9 years, I think is what I've heard. But it will keep on spreading, and it loves bottomlands, wetland areas, but it can do well most anywhere where there's moisture. But even just running a mower or weed eater over it in August, keeping it real low to the ground, that's going to be a good way to control this annual and prevent it from going to seed to prevent more. A lot of times with invasives, if you can just prevent the next generation, you're going to be saving yourself so much work, and that's really where the priority should always be, cutting down things that are actively about to fruit or go to seed. This is Japanese chaff flower. It can easily be 8 feet tall. This is something that if you just cut it, it will regrow from the rhizomes. It produces a lot of seeds. A lot of times it will get stuck on dogs or your parents' legs, so it is very common to see on the side of trails, right where people are walking in and out and bringing their dogs. So this is something that you have to dig up at least the kind of main root crown to be able to get it. So it's something easy to do with a shovel, or I like using a soil knife for this one, but it'll put out lots of roots. But this will produce a lot of seeds, and these seeds have a 95% germination rate. So if a plant produces 100 seeds, you're going to have 95 of these growing in the following spring. Relatively newer on the invasive scene as compared to some things like privet, but it is becoming a big concern. If there are seeds on it, you need to bag those seeds and make sure they end up in the trash can. There are a couple things that look like this. So this one's a little bit harder to ID, but even just having an app on your phone, like iNaturalist, Seek, Picture This, those are all great tools for helping identify plants or confirm an ID.
Rainwater catchment basins are a cornerstone of green infrastructure. These systems slow and disperse water, protect against erosion, and create space for native habitat to flourish.
One of the big purposes of the stormwater infrastructure is to slow down the speed of the water and stop it from dumping into the creek so quickly that it causes a lot of erosion. So a lot of this is to hold the water, slow it down, and get it into the ground. When a lot of these mat forming weeds come in, they hold a lot of sediments and a lot of the pine straw and leaves that come in, and they really prevent a lot of the water from going down into the rocks, from being held and going down into the ground. So we are just clearing out the riprap here, these larger rocks. You have a lot of this low smartweed with the pink flowers on it, which is forming large mats. So we'll try to get this out, and then we can either put it on a tarp or in this tarp bag, and then we'll haul it off and make a pile of it over on the edge to decompose once it's out.
Now, the group gets to work, removing invasives from riprap and basin edges, relocating willows into healthier spaces, mulching native oats, and clearing grassy areas. A new walking path takes shape, balancing access with ongoing maintenance needs. Step by step, the catchment basin transforms into a stronger, more resilient system. Beyond the work on the ground, the workshop shows what's possible when people come together, sharing knowledge, and creating landscapes that give back to the community.